I guarantee you have never seen a smartphone that can do this. You're looking at a perfectly clear 3000 nit OLED display that looks exactly like the high-end Samsung flagship you'd expect. But the second I tilt this phone just 15 degrees away from you, the screen completely vanishes. It doesn't just get dim or blurry, it looks like the entire device has been powered off. And this isn't some clever software trick or a cheap dimming filter you'd find in an app store, because Samsung actually built invisible gates directly into the pixels of the new Galaxy S26 Ultra to kill shoulder surfing forever. And this is the first time I've seen hardware level privacy handled with this much polish. And honestly, above every other new feature, this might be the most practical reason to actually spend money on upgrading this year. And listen, we've all been in one of these scenarios, right? You're sitting on a crowded train or a bus, and you can practically feel the person next to you staring a hole into your display. Maybe you're trying to type out a private message, maybe you're trying to check your bank balance, or maybe you're just watching a reality TV show that you'd rather not feel like you have to explain to a stranger. Shout out WWE Unreal. But either way, you want those eyes off of your business. The only real fix we've had for years is to buy one of those privacy screen protectors. It's a plastic stick on film that makes your beautiful $1,000 device look like you're viewing the display through a screen door. Samsung just killed off that trade-off entirely with the Galaxy S26 Ultra. And the way they've engineered this is, again, genuinely unlike anything I've ever seen done on a smartphone or any other device before. The feature is officially called Privacy Display. And the most important thing to understand, again, is that this is not a software feature. It's not just Samsung dimming the edges of your screen or applying a digital blur, because the technology is actually baked into the OLED panel at a microscopic level. So here's the thing. Inside the display stack, Samsung includes tiny structures that act like gates to control exactly which direction light travels when this mode is activated. So when you look at the phone head on, you see everything normally with full brightness and perfect color, but those gates scatter the light for anyone sitting at an angle, so they see a dark, unreadable slab of glass. So they're not even seeing like a fuzzy version of what you're looking at, because from their perspective, there's basically nothing useful to see at all. Think about what this actually means for your daily use, because every privacy screen protector you've ever bought was just a desperate attempt to block side angle light. And Samsung just integrated that entire concept directly into the glass. Now, I do want to be straight with you about the one trade-off I noticed in my limited amount of testing so far, and that is when you have the privacy display turned on. If you crank it up to the maximum protection mode, the screen for you will start to look more muted than usual. So what I mean is the colors aren't as punchy, and it's also not as bright as we're used to from Samsung. And while it is much more subtle in the standard mode instead of the max mode, there is still a slight difference that you can see if you were to take, say, an S25 Ultra and put it next to the S26 Ultra. Holding those two phones side by side, you are able to make out that difference. It's a first generation implementation of a brand new technology. But for the peace of mind it gives you in public, that's a trade I would make every single day of the week. All right, so how do you actually use this feature? It's really simple. All you do is swipe down to the control panel area and tap privacy display to go into where the toggles are located. That's where you can choose if you want maximum protection or just standard, and you just turn it off and on from there. But this is also where things get more interesting, because the depth of control sitting underneath those toggles is what makes this already genuinely useful tool more than just a cool party trick to show your friends. So you've got a few different ways to run this on the Galaxy S26 depending on what you're doing. You've got the always on mode, which just keeps it going no matter what you're in the middle of doing. Again, great if you're on a commute or just working in an open office where someone might be hovering in your peripheral vision. But there's also a per app mode. So that means you can define what apps turn on the feature. And what I mean by that, let's say you're on your home screen, privacy display is not enabled. But the second you open your banking app, privacy display gets turned on. Go back to the home screen, it's turned off. Go into your messages, turned right back on. In other words, you don't have to have it on all the time, but you can still make sure privacy display is enabled when you're doing the things on your phone that you don't want others to know about, or where you want to protect your data. But even cooler, at least in my opinion, there's a notification only mode that's genuinely smart. Instead of turning on the privacy display on your entire display of the S26 Ultra, this feature just literally hides the notification that comes onto your screen. So if you're using your phone next to other people, maybe you're scrolling on TikTok or whatever, you don't necessarily care if they see your screen. That doesn't mean you don't care if they see what notifications come in. So if you do get a notification, just the notification itself will be protected by the privacy display feature as it comes down and hovers there for a few seconds and then rises away. So anyone to your left or right can see your display perfectly, but just sees a black bar when a notification comes in. I feel like that's genius. One other thing you can do is set location-based routines. So in other words, have the privacy display automatically get enabled or disabled based on where you're physically located. So if whenever I get to the office, turn on the privacy display, and then when I leave the office, turn it off. So why does any of this even matter? Well, it matters because privacy is a bigger deal now than it's ever been. Your phone has everything on it, from your personal messages to your medical records to your banking information, passwords to every app and service that you use. And up until now, every single phone on the market made you choose between two bad options. Either you had to buy a crappy plastic privacy film that just made your display quality look worse, or what most people did is skip that and just accept that anyone who is in close proximity to you could just see what's on your screen. And Samsung just removed that choice entirely. Now, I know this feature isn't focused on megapixels or zoom or processor speeds, but it is something that I think the vast majority of people, if not everyone, can and should actually use every day in the real world. And that is rare for a flagship feature on a smartphone these days. Now, I've got a bunch more coverage of the S26, S26 Plus, and Galaxy S26 Ultra coming, including the full reviews. So be sure you're subscribed so you don't miss those. Thanks for watching as always, guys. I appreciate your support. I'm Andrew Edwards, and I will catch you in the next video.